Hello and welcome to our Flip video lesson 2.14, Empire in Crisis. And the recording links will be here once they are posted. Learning objectives of this lesson. Describe the main ideas that led to the decline of the Roman Empire, identify the extent of the Roman Empire at its height, and name 5 modern-day countries that now occupy the land that once was part of the Roman Empire. Recognize the reasons for Diocletian's decision to divide the empire into 2 sections. Introduction, the fall of the Roman Empire and geographical information. Your student guide, pages 350 to 354. You'll learn some important vocabulary to help with your understanding of this lesson. And as always, it is extremely important that you complete your reading pages 418 to 423 to tie everything together and to complete all of the objectives needed for this lesson. Introduction, 2.14, Empire in Crisis. The Roman Empire was huge. It controlled the land now occupied by more than 40 modern countries. By the 2nd century AD, the empire extended from North Africa to Britain and from Spain to Mesopotamia. Such a vast empire required strong leadership. Unfortunately, Rome experienced a period of bad rulers and internal problems. Invaders began to seriously threaten Roman borders. Would the Roman Empire survive? Okay, we're going to take a little pause from our flip video and watch this video. It's about 5 minutes long on the fall of the Roman Empire, and then we'll come back and fill out our student guide.
In this tutorial, we will be examining a question that historians have debated for centuries. Why did the Roman Empire fall? At its height, the Roman Empire controlled the entire Mediterranean world, from Spain in the west to Britain in the north, all the way to Persia in the east. It encompassed over 2 million square miles of territory and over 60 million inhabitants. Roman technology had spread all over Europe, and Roman roads linked the entire empire with its economic, military, and cultural hub, the city of Rome itself. Rome didn't fall in a day. But over the course of more than 100 years, it slowly decayed and was unable to defend its empire. It did not crumble because of one reason, but rather a combination of reasons that took a toll on the empire's military strength and its economy over a long period of time. The traditional argument for the fall of the Roman Empire relies on the barbarian tribes that had begun invading Roman lands in the 4th century AD. The Huns invaded from the east, pushing the Germanic tribes like the Goths and Visigoths into Roman territory. The Roman armies were unable to deal with mass migration of barbarian tribes into their lands. In 410 AD, a Visigoth general even sacked the city of Rome itself. This is not the entire explanation, however. Rome was crumbling from within, not just from without. Severe corruption in the government, as well as unstable leadership, spelled disaster. A series of poor emperors led the empire to financial ruin. Some emperors were even assassinated in the chaos of civil war. Such an environment did not give the people hope in the government. Rapid military expansion and conquest was also expensive and depleted the empire's coffers. Wealthy citizens tried to get out of taxation. Eventually, the treasures of war and slaves dried up, and rapid inflation further weakened the economy. With such a lack of money, the empire was unable to field enough troops to protect its borders from barbarian incursions. In the 3rd century, the Emperor Diocletian divided the Roman Empire into 2 halves. While this made the empire easier to rule in the short term, in the long term the 2 halves drifted apart. It made it more difficult for the western half to survive. They had to rely more and more on mercenaries to protect them, and these mercenaries had little to no loyalty to Rome. They only cared about getting paid. A combination of these internal and external pressures created a situation that even a strong leader would have had trouble dealing with, let alone corrupt and sometimes crazy emperors. One final factor dealt with religion. In the 1700s, the historian Edward Gibbon theorized that the spread of Christianity had also contributed to the fall of Rome. In the early days of Rome, the state religions celebrated Rome itself. The Roman gods symbolized civic virtue and the expectation of service and sacrifice in the name of Rome. Christianity spread a different set of virtues. Its followers were focused on the return of their Messiah and on preparing themselves for heaven after death. Many Christians questioned the emperor's divine status, and a belief in the glory of Rome gave way to a focus on the glory of God. Very simply, Christianity eroded the civic patriotism and loyalty that had helped Rome grow and expand for centuries. This process was finalized when the Emperor Constantine made Christianity the official religion of Rome. Explanations in history are never monocausal. That is, there is never only one explanation for a historical event. Life is more complicated than that. It's important to understand that though some causes have more impact than others, that is, the barbarian invasions and the taking of Rome, other causes can have a part too. Without corruption, financial difficulties, and a lack of civic virtue, Rome could have fielded larger armies that could have possibly defended its borders and properly protected the empire. Deciding which causes are most important is what historians constantly debate as they seek to unravel the past to find lessons for the future.
Okay, go ahead and open your student guide to page 352. So there were many different factors that led to the rise and fall of the ancient empires. The Roman Empire was no exception. By the 3rd century AD, Rome had forged the largest empire the world had ever known. But the empire's vast size would pose many problems for its rulers and eventually contribute to its decline. And that word vast means very large size. Think about the problems that an extremely large empire would face. What challenges would its ruler face? What threats, internal and external, would result from overextending an empire? What role would a ruler play in the ability of the empire to deal with these problems and threats? So the main problems that led to the decline of the Roman Empire were ineffective emperors, barbarian invasions, too many demands on the army, disease, and overextension of the empire. The empire just got so large. And with all of these other factors, it was difficult to control or to handle or to maintain. Ineffective rulers. Caligula was insane, wasted huge sums of money, and ordered the murder of many people. And then Commodus spent most of his time seeking glory for himself. He announced he was the new Romulus, and he did little to solve the serious problems facing Rome. So you can see between those two rulers, there were a lot of issues and problems that led to the decline of Rome. So here was a good ruler, Marcus Aurelius. He always did his best, and he wasn't arrogant. He used reasoning to gain his actions. He was not an angry man. He worked with others, and he tried to be a good man. So there was that virtue, that moral compass with Marcus Aurelius. Diocletian. Diocletian split the empire into two sections because he felt that it had grown too large to run smoothly. He split the empire into the Western Empire and the Eastern Empire. Each section was ruled by an emperor, the Augustus, and an assistant, the Caesar. Although by law Rome was still one empire, as time went on, each part developed its own set of problems and interests. So what went wrong? This is on page 354. So Caligula was insane. He ordered the murder of many people and wasted huge sums of money. He spent most of his time seeking glory for himself. He even announced he was the new Romulus, and he wanted the city renamed after him. He did little to solve the serious problems facing Rome. Germanic tribes attacked along the Danube. Parthians waged war in the east. North Africans pushed on the southern borders. As the empire grew, more troops were needed to protect the frontiers. Soldiers hired on the frontiers were not willing to go defend other parts of the empire and often were loyal to local commanders rather than the rulers in Rome. And then sending soldiers out to the frontiers caused a manpower shortage in Rome. And lastly, soldiers returning from Parthia brought back the plague. From AD 250 to 400, waves of smallpox and other diseases decreased the population. And vocabulary is key to understanding and comprehension. So that word decline, typically of something regarded as good, meaning it becomes smaller, fewer, less, or decreases. Ineffective is not producing any significant or desired effect. Internal means situated on the inside, the inner parts or features, and then external is coming or derived from a source outside the subject affected. And reading is key to understanding comprehension. Again, it's super important that you are completing your readings for this lesson in your Human Odyssey book, pages 418 to 423. Our quote for today from the Analects of Confucius: "The village worthy is the rune of virtue." Thank you so much for joining me today. As always, get more sleep, drink more water, get more exercise, read more, get more organized, clean more often, explore more, relax more, have more patience, forget doing more. Just try your best. Have an amazing day.